the Kellerman Consulting webinar regarding why medical device companies should pursue ISO 13485 certification. As we go through this webinar presentation, if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to use the chat function, and I'll try to address any questions as they come up during the webinar itself. If not, I'll definitely have time to catch it at the end. So to get started, we are going to cover topics such as what is ISO 13485, what types of businesses should pursue the certification, why should you even go for this, why, if you're in the medical device industry, do you need to pursue an ISO 13485 certification, and then the regulatory changes that are driving this need and the growth within this sector. So what is ISO 13485? It's an international standard published by the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, for the medical device quality management system and QMS process. ISO is a huge international organization, and they've got standards for any and all types of manufacturing and business sectors. 13485 is specific to medical devices only. It is based off of the 9001 standard, which the ISO 9001 standard can be considered applicable for any business, whether it be paper-based office systems or manufacturing programs themselves. But the ISO 13485 standard does have that focus on maintaining patient safety and protecting the consumer marketplace. So what is a quality management system? You hear all the conversations around, oh, yeah, I need to get certified. You might have a customer requesting you to become certified. What does that entail? Typically, it entails having what's called a quality management system. And you want to have evidence to show that you have the ability to manufacture high quality medical devices or components in a controlled and consistent manner. Repeatability is key. So in order to have repeatability, you got to have a process in place. And some of those processes include designing, manufacturing, packaging, labeling, storage, installation, or even servicing once that device is in the marketplace. The beauty of a quality management system is one company can have all of those processes or just have one of those processes, but they all apply as to needing a quality management system itself. So again, with a quality management system, the key is providing that documentation and evidence that you have a program that is successful and in place and repeatable. So if you have documents to justify why you don't need to have a design program or why you're not doing any labeling, you want to make sure that you have that documented down in that justification to say, hey, this is why this section doesn't apply to us. Both ISO and the FDA allow companies to plug and play and provide specifications particular to their company and what they do. So the key with any quality management system, and in the eyes of the FDA, is if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. So the proof is in the pudding. You want to make sure that you have a system that's robust and will be able to document all the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. I often tell folks that I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, much less what happened 6 months ago. So you want to make sure that you have enough detail in your documentation to be able to provide answers for things that happened in the past, whether it be 1 day, 1 week, or 2 years ago. So some kinds of systems that we have is documentation control, training, change control, design control. Are you seeing a theme? We want to make sure we have control. Corrective and preventative actions, because Murphy's Law is a real thing and it can happen. You want to have vendor and supplier management, customer complaints, adverse event reporting. This is especially important with the medical device community because if things are causing patient harm, consumer harm, the FDA has provided a mechanism for them to report in and be able to do that trace back to find out what is causing that harm. Internal auditing and product traceability. So we talked about ISO 13485 and briefly about what ISO is. And again, it's the International Organization for Standardization. It was founded in 1947 as a voluntary organization to develop standards that are agreed upon on a global level. So what happens is companies, or countries, I should say, are part of this member organization. And then each country has a panel that ties in to help design and harmonize and agree upon standards for that particular industry. In the United States, ANSI is our membership body that works with ISO. And part of developing the new regulations that I'll get into in a little bit later with the FDA also is a part of the ISO 1345 committee that helps shapes what these regulations are. So we talk about ISO 1345 and the importance of having a quality management system. But now we need to talk about what types of businesses should pursue ISO 1345 certifications themselves. So medical device manufacturers are obviously number one, the ones that need to have some kind of quality management system. Medical devices range from basic and simple, like Band-Aids and gauze, to needles and syringes, to EKG machines, X-ray machines, software, pacemakers. It goes everywhere from non-invasive to extremely invasive. Stethoscopes are considered a medical device. Glasses, sunglasses are a medical device. Apple iWatches are considered a medical device now because of all the health tracking benefits that they provide. So anything and everything that provides a health benefit, whether it be something that directly touches skin or not, can be considered a medical device. Baby diapers, like I said, syringes and needles, things of that nature. The packaging that you're sterilizing to go with those medical devices, they all count. Contract manufacturers. So not all companies have the ability to open up a manufacturing facility all on their own. So they will say, hey, facility, you've got all the equipment. Will you make this for me? So again, contract manufacturers, whether they make nothing but medical devices, or maybe they make lots of different things and products, and only one of them is a medical device, can be considered to have an ISO 1345 certification. Components and material suppliers, as we go through this webinar, medical device companies are certainly going to want to pursue 1345. And with a trickle-down effect, what happens at the top, in order to ensure the supply chain is current, is now going to come through to companies that only supply maybe one different thing. Wheelchairs are considered a medical device. So if you make a metal part that goes on a part of a wheelchair, maybe the footstool, that is considered a component to a medical device, and you may be interested in pursuing a 1345 certification. Design and development firms. So entrepreneurship is huge right now. We see it on Shark Tank. We see it with content creators on TikTok and things. People are coming up with these new ideas. If you are coming up with a new idea, that design and development can be considered a medical device, and you want to have a process to control what you're creating, even going into patent level, as well as any changes that you make to that design if you were to implement it with a manufacturing company or a contract manufacturer. Sterilization and packaging providers. So there are companies that will do nothing but take your products, sterilize them, and send them back to you. They would want to be considered for 1345 certification because, again, they will need to have the quality management system to show that they have the processes in place to support the industry. Installation and maintenance services for medical devices also apply. So if you've got someone that will come in and calibrate your X-ray machine or work on the software of that X-ray machine, you want to make sure that they have that ISO 1345 certification so they have that quality management system as well on how they handle their customer base. Software developers for standalone or embedded medical device software. So we talk about pacemakers. They've got software in them, and they're so sophisticated now that they will talk to, through the cloud, different doctors and their software firms. Like I mentioned before, your watch, it's got an app on your phone that you can go through. So if you're creating an app that integrates with the medical device, that would be something that could be considered for ISO 1345 certification as well. And then Best of all, anybody that's looking to sell devices globally would like to have 1345 certification, because again, the beauty of ISO is the entire world has says, yep, this is the best practice. This is the standards we're going to follow. I will accept it in the EU. I will accept it in Asia. I will accept it in Australia. It doesn't matter. We all have agreed that if you're in this ISO 13485 certification program, you have standards that anybody can recognize as following an excellent quality management system process. So why should businesses pursue medical device ISO 13485 certification? It's regulatory compliance. So I'll get to that in just a little bit in the next few slides when we talk about the FDA. But domestic and international programs, again, recognize ISO 13485 as being the best practice for medical device standardization. Again, with that 13485 certification, you now have the ability to market your products globally because it is a globally recognized standard that everyone considers best practice. You'll have quality and process control. So again, it'll come back to standardizing what you do day in and day out. The worst thing that you could do is create a company and be expected to run all parts of it. No one is an island. We work best as a team, and you want to be able to have a team that you can train, delegate, and know that they're going to follow processes. So by having an ISO 13485 certification, we go back to that documentation. You're going to have documentation control. You're going to have procedures. You're going to have forms, and it makes it so it's repeatable that anybody who's trained should be able to follow that process. If you were to go on vacation for a month, I don't know, join Survivor, join The Amazing Race, you should be able to trust that your company can continue to run without you during that time frame because you've got policies, procedures, and programs in place. You want to have that trust that no matter what day of the week it is, you're running consistently and providing the best product quality you can. Talk about risk mitigation. Risk has become quite the buzzword in the Food and Drug Administration and the industry overall. Risk is something that ISO has developed standards on, as well as embeds in all of their quality management systems, all the way down to the ISO 9001 level. It's less about checking boxes and more about understanding your business and what individually, personally, with your company provides the biggest red flags, potential barriers, things that can go wrong, Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong, and how are you going to plan for it? So it's crisis management, business continuity, and it's talking about all the things that potentially could go wrong within your company and having a plan and an action to address it. There's levels of risk. Some you'll say, ooh, I can't accept this. We got to make changes. I have to get it out of the system. We can't have a risk this high. And then there's some that are going, yep, I understand it. I can't fix it. It's the cost of doing business. We'll just accept it. And then there's ways to minimize the risk to where it doesn't happen very often. So again, there's tools and programs, and that's a totally different webinar topic. But risk mitigation is a huge part of ISO 13485 and any other ISO program. The FDA has finally recognized that, hey, we've been doing ISO 13485 for a very long time. It's got some good parts to it. Why don't we adopt that and not recreate the wheel? So ISO 13485 also becomes a competitive advantage. So the FDA doesn't like it when you advertise that you're audited by the FDA. It's not really a good look. But when you have a certification like ISO 13485, you can splash it on your website. You can put it on your business cards. Of course, there's logo rules to do so, but you absolutely can brag about it that you are an ISO 13485 certified company. And that becomes a major calling card for businesses that would like to expand their supply chain. So a medical device company that makes, like I said, Band-Aids or something, could then come in and say, hey, I need a new box. I need new packaging. I need a new adhesive. I need new white square things that absorb. Let me work with you. You're 13485 certified. I know you've got programs in place. So having this certification becomes a major calling card across anybody that works within the medical device sector. It also improves internal communications, provides business continuity and that structure. Like I said, business continuity is a peace of mind. No one wants to be chained to their company 24/7. Yes, it's your baby. Yes, you want it to do well. Yes, you want it to succeed, but there is a balance needed with family and life. And having that business continuity allows you to place trust, knowing that the processes are in place. As we continue on, it also provides support and design development controls. One of the biggest pitfalls that happens is, again, you don't remember what you did last month. So you made a change to something. It was a good idea at the time. You ran with it. Time comes to make another change and you forget why you did it in the first place. So having support design and development controls puts that documentation in place so you know that you're making an informed decision with that change. People as a nature tend to find ways to make process improvements on their own. That's not something you really want to do with a medical device. So you don't want to constantly tweak and change without having those changes controlled, because that's an easy way to, again, Murphy's Law, find you. 13485 certification enhances your supply chain. So like I said, I'm going to get to it in the next couple of slides, but FDA is making major changes in the food and drug cosmetic legislation area. And what they're doing is now they're going to say, this is a best practice. Well, whoever makes those medical devices that are now to consumer level are going to say, I need to mitigate my risk, my supply chain. I'm going to ask you, who provides your wheelchair part, to become ISO 13485 certified to help me protect what I have to answer to the FDA. So it enhances that supply chain relationship oversight. And once you have that certification, businesses absolutely are going to look upon you favorably and consider you a lower risk that you have that certification in your pocket. It's going to increase customer confidence, trust, and satisfaction, because again, having that consistency and repeatability just makes it easier on a business to do the right thing at all times. It's also going to enable business growth and scalability. So when a small business now is trying to implement ISO 13485, you're putting in a process that has the ability to grow and expand as your business grows and expands. So you may start with one machine that is doing one wheelchair part, but soon you might have a whole factory floor and you're doing 16 wheelchair parts. The process is going to maintain the same. You are still going to have documentation control. You are still going to have an internal audit program. You're still going to have corrective and preventive actions to fix when things go wrong. You're still going to have training plans and programs in place. So it's scalable to help your business grow, not only domestically, but internationally, if that's what you so desire. And it also supports the requirements of post-market surveillance and CAPA. So post-market surveillance, again, is mostly driven towards those consumer-facing medical device companies. They have to make sure that what they've put out in industry isn't falling apart, isn't degrading, isn't causing injury, isn't causing skin irritations and toxicity, isn't making anyone sick. So they have to do some post-market surveillance, and that ties in with continuous improvement in that plan, do, check, act process of making sure that you're continually improving your business and making positive changes. So I talked about a little bit earlier in a couple of different places, regulatory changes coming. The FDA in 2026, so February 2nd, is going to put in an update to their current law. What that means is 21 CFR Part 820 is the medical device sector quality management system regulation. They want to make sure that finished medical devices don't have that poor quality, high cost issue. So they are saying that we are now going to update our law, and it's going to be in effect as of February 2026. What that high cost is, market delays, FDA adverse event actions, 43 observations, warning letters, injunctions. We don't want to go there. Adulterated products, misbranded products, and then the dreaded recall. No one wants to have their products come back and end up on ABC News for having a recall notice. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent that. And part of that is the FDA says we have changes we need to make too from an industry. So why are they doing this? Again, the FDA's realized that they need to keep up. The last time the FDA made a change to the law was in 1996. So nearly 30 years ago, will be 30 years by the time it goes into effect. And lots of things have changed. I think about it, and technology has come leaps and bounds. We didn't have the cloud back in 1996. Smartphones didn't exist in 1996. We absolutely know the watches didn't exist. So they realized that manufacturing processes have changed. It's gone global. Contract manufacturing has grown. Technology has changed. They want to make sure that they are changing with it. So in 2018, they started talking about how they wanted to make these types of changes and what they wanted to do. So COVID kind of threw a wrench in the works in 2020, 2021. Things slowed down a bit, but they decided to keep on pushing to see what they need to do to make changes. And of course, with COVID changing the way a lot of businesses do business, remote work, for example, they realized that they need to encompass all of those potential business processes. So in 2022, they made it available for public comment. So part of the FDA, being that it is a government entity, they have to allow everyone to be able to speak their piece on what changes they don't like about the law. Any law that is out there, you have the ability to make a public comment and make those your opinions known. Now, whether you listen is another subject, but at least you can make those opinions known. So by proposing to incorporate ISO 13485, the FDA is signaling that they want to align with these global regulations. So prior to making this change that's going to go into effect next year, you had to not only follow the FDA QSR, which had different requirements than ISO 13485, but if you wanted your business to be global, you also had 13485 certification. So you're really running two different programs and trying to make them align. So when FDA would come in and do an inspection of your facility, they would ask for things that weren't in the ISO 13485 standard, or vice versa. You're way covered because you had that 13485 standard, and it was very easy for that FDA inspection. So what they're doing now is it's technically a voluntary standard. You are not required to be ISO 13485 certified, but in order to meet the federal law and regulation, you're going to be doing the ISO 13485 standard program. So at this point, why not become ISO 13485 certified? It's an auditing body that will come to you every year, and it makes sure that you are up to speed and following these programs and processes consistently. So it's an independent view of how your company is doing. And again, it becomes something that you can brag about versus I'm just following the letter of the law. So we want to make sure that while you're pursuing a 13485 certification, at the same time, you're going to be meeting those legal requirements. So again, this is intended to promote the use of a more modern risk management mindset and reduce the regulatory burdens on the device manufacturers of trying to run two separate programs that didn't really speak to each other well, and harmonizing domestic and international requirements. So it comes back to not only are you going to meet what USA wants you to do, but now you're also meeting any other global regulation as well. Now, that's not to say that Canada doesn't have their own little special tweak on things. They might have a little bit extra they want you to do. The EU might have a little bit extra. For example, CE marking might be a requirement. But as a firm basis of a quality management system, it's going to be recognized globally with that 13485 certification. So again, what is the FDA's QMSR? It is a rule that is going to place the quality system regulation called QSR. The hyperlink leads directly to the electronic 21 CFR Part 820. So really, the only thing that is changing is not the number of the standard itself, but the fact that they're adding that M into the acronym. And that's just going to be able to differentiate between old law versus new law. So the new lingo is going to be coming out as QMSR instead of talking about a QSR. The FDA is currently rewriting all of their documentation as to how they conduct investigations and inspections of facilities. They're currently training all of their inspectors to ISO 13485 standards and making sure we're all on the same level playing field before that February go live date. So it's in our best interest to go ahead and focus on what do we need to do to be 13485 certified, or at least compliant to the program if you do not want to go through the expense of certifying and getting that calling card with a certifying body. So we're focused on unifying U.S. medical device regulations and developing those best practices globally with the ISO 13485 requirements. Again, February 2nd, 2026 is going to be a big day for the medical device industry as a whole, because that's when on February 2nd, if an FDA inspector shows up at your facility, they're going to expect to see the new QMSR standards. So it went live 2023. So we've had a couple of years now to get to the ISO 13485 standard point. So when February 2nd hits, we need to be good to go and ready to rock and roll following the 13485 standard itself, as it's now a QMSR law. So now that we've gone through all this, and I've totally told you 13485 is the way to go, we want to make sure that we know how to implement FDA's quality management system regulation. So when it comes down to the QMSR, the only companies that have to follow this law are the ones that put that finished medical device out into the marketplace. So it would be the Band-Aid brand. It would be Covidien with needles and syringes. It would be Apple with their watches. It would be Huggies and their diapers. Those companies are now the consumer-facing part. They have to follow the letter of the law. They're then going to turn around and, like I said, go to their supply chain and say, hey, help us out. We have to make our supply chain robust, everywhere from what we get for packaging, where we store logistically, contract manufacturing, all of our pieces and parts. We want you guys to be 13485 certified as well. And they're going to turn around and say, here, go follow this. So you're not, as a component supplier, required to follow QMSR legal things. It's only for what you're doing for a finished medical device. However, now as of February 2nd, 2026, that the FDA is aligning to 13485 standards, you are now considered following the letter of the law as well. So we want to make sure that you're up to speed and you know what these changes are. So if your company that you're supplying products to says, hey, help me out, get 13485 certified, here's what you need to do to get into that level of standard and know what you need to improve or fix. So we want to perform a gap analysis against that standard and the QMSR rule. So there's templates, and you'll be able to say, okay, this is what QSR 21 CFR Part 820 says. This is what ISO 13485 says. They're both talking about the same thing. Do I have a management review process? Do I have an internal audit program? Do I have corrective and preventative action program? Do I have documentation control? If you say yes or no, if you say yes, you're great. If you happen to say no, then you want to make sure that you're putting steps in place to get that corrected and up to speed with the intent of the standard in the FDA law. So you'll want to revise and update your documents to align with the QMSR and ISO 13485, which again focuses on that risk management piece. And then once you've made those changes, you want to make sure you're training your personnel on what those changes are. So we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page in what is being changed and rolled out, so there's no confusion. Part of continuous improvement, again, is going and saying, did the changes in the training stick? Are we doing the right things? So you might want to have a monitoring period, because change is hard. I've learned over the years that it takes about 21 days for something to become a habit. So within that first month is really when you want to make sure that you're creating those good habits. If something backslides and goes into an old habit, you want to have the time to make those changes and make sure everybody's retrained and doing the right things. The key, again, with any quality management system process is to make sure that you have a way of noticing when things are coming off the rails, when Murphy's Law has played a role in your business, when things need to be improved upon. And you can use your customer complaint program. You can use audit nonconformances. You can use some customer surveys. Everybody and their brother is doing a survey nowadays. You can get a free Taco Bell taco if you take a 5-minute survey on the end of your receipt. So you want to make sure that you are taking the time to listen to what your customers are saying. I don't know about you, but I pitch the receipt in the garbage and I never call in and do the survey. I don't need a free taco that bad. However, if something was bothering me and weighing on me and I felt a need to then speak to someone, you want to listen, because only about 1 in 10 people actually take the time to do those surveys. So when that one speaks, consider it a voice of maybe 10 other folks that had the same concern and the same issue. And that, of course, can expound into profound changes for your business if you truly listen to the voice of the customer itself. All right, well, that concludes the presentation. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? And if you do, please feel free to insert them in the chat, and I'll be happy to provide any answers that I can. All right, thank you all. And again, here's my contact information. If you'd like to reach out outside of this webinar for questions or concerns or comments, please feel free. And thank you for attending.